got a D-Stacks beat?
Yeah, I got a D-Stacks beat. Listen to the beat, y'all. Come on, D-Stacks, bring it in. Hey, 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 hey. Woo! Queens on a roll. Ooh, queens on a roll. Powerful queens on a roll. Beautiful queens, queens, queens on a roll. We're moving, we're grooving, we're jamming, we're slamming. Queens on a roll. We're moving, we're grooving, we're jamming, we're slamming. Queens, queens, queens on a roll. She's educated and inspiring everyone that has challenges. Queens, queens, queens on a roll. She's educated and inspiring everyone and having fun. She's queens on a roll. Woo, queens on a roll. Ooh, queen on a roll. Powerful queens on a roll. Beautiful queens on a roll. Come roll with us. Ooh, come roll with us. Come roll with us. Ooh, come roll with us. Ooh, queen on a roll. Ooh, queen on a roll. Ooh, queen.
Hey everyone, this is Latavia, and welcome back to Queens on the Road podcast. I have the lovely Miss Shontae with me here today. She is a very dear friend of mine. Hey Miss Shontae, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How is everybody doing?
I'm doing great. So are you ready?
I am.
All right, we're going to get into the fact that your son has autism spectrum disorder. So that is the topic for today. Are you ready to roll?
I am.
So let's roll.
You got a D-Stacks beat?
So, Miss Shontae, can you please tell everyone what autism spectrum disorder is?
Sure. So autism spectrum disorder, it's a neurological and developmental disorder that affects the way people interact with others, communicate, learn, and behave.
Right. So, I know you have a son. What was it like raising him and he's ably different?
So my son was diagnosed a little later on in his childhood, but it started off as a speech language delay. So we just thought that's what it was. And we were finding that he just wasn't communicating as effectively as other children his age. By the time we got the official kind of diagnosis, we were already late to start early intervention, but we still were able to get him in at the tail end of early intervention and was able to get an ABA therapist.
Great. What were some of the milestones that you noticed he was missing?
With ABA therapy, I noticed that my son communicated better. He answered to his name as opposed to looking through me, which he did before he received ABA services. He was now looking at me and he was able to respond to his name, able to say mom for the first time, able to more articulately at least be able to get my attention to be able to help him with his needs. because children who are nonverbal, it's very difficult in the sense that you have to anticipate every need. So it's almost like when you have a newborn infant, where if they cry, you have no clue if they're crying because they're wet, they're hungry, they're hurting or in pain, they're constipated. You have no clue why they're crying. You have to figure it out. And so it was just me constantly trying to figure it out, which was very exhausting as a parent.
I was just getting ready to say that. Was it stressful, and what did it feel like?
Getting a diagnosis of autism, or I feel like any kind of diagnosis for a special needs child, can be difficult. I think that initially I felt a lot of guilt and shame because I felt like it was something that I did wrong to cause my son to be autistic. And once I got over that hurdle of just knowing that there was nothing that I could have done to prevent him having autism, when I took myself out of the equation, I was able to really give my child what he needed, which was unconditional love and support. He was already receiving unconditional love, but the support I couldn't give him because I was so much in my head about how could this happen to my child? So once I got over that, I was able to press through and really be an advocate for my son.
Right. And I think that's really great because there is no cause for autism, right? They speculate it could be genetic. They speculate it could be environmental. So there's no cause for that. So I can really understand and really sympathize with the fact that you felt like it could have been your fault, and I never want any parent to feel like that, right? Life happens, situations happen. And so it's just another hurdle you got to get over. But your son is great now, and he seems to have made a lot of progress. Can you tell us more of the progress he has made?
Sure. So my son was a lot more nonverbal in his earlier years and wasn't really interacting with other children his age. He now interacts with select peers. He still plays alongside a lot of children, but he's able to actually play. He's in more interactive play and socialization with his classmates. So that's been kind of paramount. There's still a lot of repetition at home, still me saying kind of the same things. Routine is so important for children with special needs. There's so much instability in the world, and, the home environment is one of the best places that children should have stability. And also the school environment. So I feel like a combination of home and school and having really good communication with, your child's teachers, their occupational therapists, their speech therapists, their physical therapists, finding out whatever exercises or tools you can use at home that will tie into the goals that the therapists have for your child really kind of helps create kind of this one world that your child exists in that's really supporting all of their goals.
Right. And I always say it's always a big team effort, right? When you're raising someone who's ably different, you need that whole village around you to make sure that they are productive members of society. So that is really great. Have you faced any challenges so far with him going through his educational journey, where there's some positive impacts, negative drawbacks? What has that been like for you?
My son benefited from being able to go to AMAC, which was the Area Metro Association for Children with Autism. So he was there for the first few years of his formal education in preschool. He was there. They transitioned him out into the public school system. So he's now at a District 75 school here in New York City, which means any child who has any type of developmental delay, intellectual disability, emotional or social disability, those kinds of schools are geared towards those children. So it was a hard transition because I felt like AMAC was very supportive and it was specialized. So AMAC, for people who don't know, it was a school that essentially went to age 21. So children were there until they became young adults. And then sometimes the adults would therefore have some type of job role at the school or somewhere out in the community. So it was a really, really awesome institution. And unfortunately, they did close due to lack of funding and other things. Mm-hmm. So that was hard, making the transition to public school. And I always feel like public school is so hard just because of lack of funding and then lack of just politics. Certain school districts get more funding and more resources that they need than others. And so I was really hesitant to put them in the public school system. But lots of prayer and lots of tears, and lots of communication. It's all about communication, being your child's best advocate. You are their best advocate. You know them better than anybody else does. So you know what their deficits are, whether it's gross motor, fine motor, emotionally, whether they can handle certain things. I mean, you are their best advocate. So it was a lot of communicating with my son's therapist, again, his teachers, finding out where his strengths were in the classroom, finding out socially how he was adapting to other children. All of those things are really important. It's important for you to know, but it's important also for you to be just as good as a listener as you are an advocate. So being able to ask the teacher, what were some problem areas for him in school, we were able to have a dialogue and be able to establish, okay, this is what I do when I feel like he's getting off of track or he's, having off-task behaviors. This is how I've been able to get his attention. And together, the collaboration, we've been able to identify ways to keep his attention, to keep his focus, to encourage him when he feels discouraged and he doesn't want to do an activity or a task. And it's just been it's really important. I can't stress the importance enough of just really being a clear and effective communicator with the people who are working with your child.
Right. That is very, very, very important. My mom was like my biggest advocate, so I definitely understand where you were coming from. And I can definitely relate to being reluctant about being in the public school system, not really sure, right? Because I talked about it in the previous episode where I didn't really fit in one particular mode, right? So I grew up going through general ed, but I was under the umbrella of special ed. So I didn't particularly fit in a box. And so that can be hard when you don't fit the mold of what the New York City DOE definition is of someone who needs to be in special ed or someone who needs to be in general ed. So I can definitely understand the nervousness. I guarantee you my mom felt the same nervousness, So these are things that I feel like on some level, all parents experience who have children who are ably different. And like I said, I experienced it myself. So I kind of understand the difficulty of trying to navigate and trying to make sure he is where he needs to be and get the appropriate services, because it definitely is a difficult balance. And you definitely do have to be your child's best advocate. If you don't speak up, right now he's not at an age where he can speak up for himself. So definitely parents need to speak up more and speak out. I think that's really one of the biggest things that we need to do and we need to really emphasize. What are like some of your advocating tools that you use now?
So for me, just thinking about autism, anybody can go on Autism Speaks.
Right.
Autism Speak has a variety, kind of like this whole library of resources, videos, tools, everything, little scripts. They have everything that you can just learn about autism, learn about the different types of autism, because again, it is on a spectrum, and to know that what autism looks like in your child may not look the same way in the next child. Every disability, there's a category for that disability, but there are still a spectrum within every disability category. So understanding that a special needs child is just that, very special, and that what the same diagnoses may look like in one child does not look like another. So to know that, Include NYC, which is a huge resource here in New York, but they also still do workshops and things like that, just worldwide advocacy, especially for parents who have special needs children, because your IEP is your contract between you and the school about the services that they are required to provide to your child. So really having a thorough understanding of your child's IEP. Include NYC does things like that, training and advocacy. I actually, through Include NYC, became an IEP parent member. And if you don't know what an IEP is, it's an individualized education plan, which again, it has all of the related services that your child has. It has the formal diagnoses. It has the classroom size and setting and any other specialized services that your child may require. And that is your biggest, that document for me, anytime we change it, I make sure I have the new copy. That is very important to me. That is almost like your child's Bible. You need that wherever you go, just to continue to advocate for your child. If you move to a different state, if you move to a different school, all of those things are important. But Include NYC has been one of the biggest tools that I've used as a parent, just because of the training sessions. They also have a call center where they are available all the time. You can call them and ask any kinds of questions, and they will get back with you with somebody who is specialized and can answer those questions or direct you to the resources. They have a number of resources on their website, and their information has been invaluable to me, both as a parent and an advocate for disability rights, not just in New York, but all over the country and all over the world.
Right. Those are very great resources. Thank you for sharing those, because I definitely think our parents will definitely need that. So jot it down, pause this moment and jot it down and get it all down, because she just dropped some wonderful gems on you guys. Gems were just dropped. And I just wanted to emphasize, you are right. Autism spectrum disorder is just that. It's on a spectrum, right? So you can have some kids that are nonverbal. You can have some kids that are verbal. You can have some that just struggle with social interaction, but they are okay academically. So you really just have to know your child, know what their strengths are, know what their weaknesses are, and it's great. What do you want to see your son do in the future?
I want to be that parent that just continues to love on him and nurture him, exposure to him. I'm not ashamed of my child in any way, shape, or form. We have been to the aquarium. My son loves trains, just like I do. We've been on train rides, both the commuter rail, the subway here in New York City. We go out of the state to Connecticut to go to the aquarium. You know, I've always been somebody that has traveled with my child. He's actually out of the country now with my husband. They're home with our family in West Africa. So I do not limit my child in his exposure to just the world and life. He's actually been out of the country more times than I have. So my goal is that he's exposed and blessed with opportunities that will exceed what I've been able to do so far in my lifetime. So I want him to do and be whatever that is he wants to be. Right now, he's just so interested in mechanical, electrical. He likes, being able to get the mechanics of things. So just nurturing that. He watches a lot of train videos, not just, rails in the United States, but over in Europe. So he is very much into like commuter rails and subway rails. So maybe he'll be an engineer or a conductor, or I have no idea, but I want him to be whatever he wants to be. And I want to continue to instill in him that he can be whatever he wants to be.
Right. And I'm excited to see like what he grows into, what he blossoms into. And like, this is exactly why I do this podcast, right? Because even though he is a part of the ably different community, he's still a person. He still has likes. He still has wants. He still has needs. He's still a person. So we have to always remember to nurture that. And that's really great. I know you said he went away. What are some things that you did to prepare him for that trip?
Well, one of the things that before we got his diagnosis, me and my husband had always agreed that my son would learn, one of the local languages that my husband speaks. So my son actually, he can comprehend everything my husband is telling him because he's been hearing that language since before he was born when I was still pregnant with him. So he is home and he is understanding what they're saying because he's been exposed to it his whole life. And so I think constant exposure, constantly taking my son out on trips. He's been to the zoo. He's been to Carnegie Hall. I don't limit my child because of his disability. It doesn't, negate the fact that he still needs to be exposed and he still needs to be able to explore his world. And I think that's why he's okay with traveling on a plane 10 plus hours like they have to on a nonstop flight to West Africa because he's been used to traveled ever since he was an infant. He's used to being out and about. So I'm grateful that I've taken that time to, expose him to the world around him.
So I would say that the one thing you would need to do is like expose them to everything. Don't limit them to everything, right?
Don't limit them. And I know it's hard because you want to protect your child from being ostracized by society. At the same time, you are your child's biggest advocate. The greatest thing that you can do for your child and for society as a whole is to take your child outside. Let them walk around. Let them explore. Let the world see who your child is because trust me, there are people that are ready to love and support your child just as much as you are and that want to see them succeed and that understand the importance of diversity and the value that brings into the community, the workplace, the school place. everyone has their contribution, their unique contribution to society. And we all need to be respectful and more inclusive of that. No one should be treated differently just because they're different than mainstream society. We have to love more, and there needs to be more humanity in the world.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely do agree with that. You talked about, being ostracized by society a little bit. Is that one of your fears, that your son could be ostracized by society?
I believe so. And I think that it's going to bother me more than it's going to bother him, because he's dancing to the beat of his own drum right now. And I love that about him. He's unfazed by it. And I just pray that he continues to be unfazed by it. I think the older that we get, the more mature that people get, or just the older in general, the more we focus on, being seen, being valued. And I'm grateful that I've instilled in my son so much that he is loved and he can do whatever he wants to do, that I really hope that, I know that it's deep down within him and within his spirit. And so I know that he's going to be okay.
Right. But why are you still afraid?
I think I'm worried because as a mother, as a parent, you want to protect your kids from the meanness and the cruelness of the world. I feel like that's one of our duties as parents. You never want to see your child going through hardships just because somebody just wants to pick on the fact that you don't, quote unquote, fit in. So I think that that's where, my sadness comes in, because I don't ever want to see him nor anybody else picked on. I've been bullied. And, that's a big thing that's been happening in society, is that children and even some adults have been being bullied, and the devastating consequences of that. Repeated abuse. And I don't want to see that happen to my son or anyone else. So that's why I'm such a big advocate on taking your child out. And if someone has something negative to say, counteracting it and throwing it back at that person. Why do you feel the need to project your insecurity on somebody who's different than you?
Right. I think my mom was a little bit scared about that too. And I can relate to that point, because my mom kind of raised me to be like, listen, I see you as this, but outside the world is going to judge you by your wheelchair. So what I need you to do is always put your best foot forward and show them that you're smart at all times. Looking back on it now that I'm older, she was trying to instill that in me, because she could have been fearful herself that people were going to judge me based on what I was sitting in and say, oh, she can't do this, she can't do this. So now we have to, treat her differently. And so she was always like, you have to make sure you show people at all times that you're intelligent. So I can definitely relate to that. And now I see, now that I'm older and now that I'm having these conversations with different people, that my mom was sort of scared of the same things and trying to prepare me for those things,
And it can be hard, because when children are nonverbal or not a lot, not very verbal, it can be scary when your child comes home and you're talking to them and you just hear them say the word stupid, because they've either heard somebody call them stupid or say something like that. And I immediately come back and say, Abdul, we don't use that word. You are very intelligent. You're a smart young man. You're intelligent. You can do whatever you want to do. I always counteract that, because I never want outsider voices to be bigger than his inner voice and what he's been, the values that have been instilled in him.
I think you're going to make me cry for the first time. I'm going to cry on the show. That is definitely it, right? And I really want all parents to take that away from it. Even if you have a child that is ably different, treat them just like everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason why you have to treat them different.
And I talk to my son exactly the way that I'm talking on this podcast right now, the way that I would talk to a normal adult. When he was younger, I used to, oh, hi, what's going on? But now it's just, I really talk to him like a regular person,
right.
and I'm saying regular person, but I talk to him as if he doesn't have a disability,
right.
Because I want him to be able to interact appropriately, but also understand that you are a person. I identify you, your body, your spirit as something of value. And I'm going to talk to you like somebody of value. And I want him to be able to communicate effectively with other people. So I don't baby him. When I reprimand him for doing something wrong, I do it in a loving way, but I do it in a way that lets him know I'm disappointed in him. And I'm disappointed that despite being taught to do the right thing, he chose to do, to either not listen or to do the exact opposite, and that there's always a consequence, whether it's good or bad. So I teach him that because I want him to understand that I'm not always going to be around, and I need him to be able to make wise decisions, whether I'm around him or not. So I also let him know I hold him responsible because, contrary to what people believe, people with special needs actually are very intelligent, whether they can communicate it or not. And so, you have to hold everybody accountable for their actions. And so that's what I'm trying to instill in him now, just to be accountable for your actions. If you don't listen and something happens that you don't want to happen, it's because you didn't listen and there was a negative consequence. But I know that he knows that it's correction and love because he always comes back and he wants to hug me. He wants to love on me. So he understands that, yes, I did, I had an accident. I made a boo-boo. I did something I wasn't supposed to do, but he knows that he's loved and supported by me and my husband.
Yeah. And as a person who is ably different, I can tell you, you are doing the right thing because we just want to be seen as people. We don't want to be treated differently. We want to be seen just like everyone else. We do everything that everyone else does. We just happen to do it differently. So I will say, as a parent, you are doing the best. You are rocking it. You are killing it. So you are doing a good job, and please, please keep it up.
You got a D-Stacks beat. You got a D-Stacks beat. You got a D-Stacks beat.
What is one of your fondest memories of hanging with your son or just family time in general?
Ooh, I can't think of any right now, any isolated incidents. You put me on the spot.
Story time.
I just remember being I want to say we were with my best friend who is like a sister to me. She is a sister to me. And we were riding in the car and he just kept saying, thank you. Like, thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And it meant so much because your child knows how much you love them to be able to say thank you. And my son doesn't talk as much. He talks a lot more than he used to, but just the acknowledgement. And every so often he'll do that. We'll be sitting somewhere and we could be doing nothing. And he would just start saying, thank you, mommy. I thank you. I thank you. Thank you. And I say, you're welcome, Abduli. Like, you're so welcome. You're welcome. And I let him know you are welcome, but you are so deserving of that. Our children are deserving of all the love and all the opportunities that this life and this world has to give us. And we just have to nurture them into knowing that they are deserving of that. There is nothing that they can't do if they don't put their mind to it with the right support systems and tools and resources. So continue to invest in our children, continue to invest in your child, continue to invest in yourself. Because as much as you invest in them, you have to remember self-care and that you can't pour from an empty vessel. If that means you need to take a walk, you need to journal, you need to vlog, you need to talk to somebody. Mental health is so important. It can be exhausting trying to take in so much information as a special needs parent. If you need to talk to a psychiatrist or a therapist, there is nothing wrong with you other than you needing to release. And you cannot pour from an empty cup. So Take the time for you. Do a crossword. Take a bubble bath. Let yourself sit in a room and uninterrupted for, an hour, 2 hours. Go for a spa treatment, a massage, all these things. Maybe have some downtime where you're doing a family night and everybody's just relaxing on the couch, but give yourself grace too, because it's not an easy journey, but you're just as worth it as your child is. So take the time to pour into yourself, because our children are watching what we do too, as well as what we say. So understand that when you're not practicing self-care, you're giving them the example that should be running, and not taking the time to just be still. So my son, he takes the time to be still because he sees me be still.
So you spoke about pouring into yourself. Going off of that, what are some of your future endeavors that you want to do for you?
For me, let's see. So I want to travel more. I haven't been able to. I'm in grad school right now, so I haven't been able to travel as much as I want to. To be able to travel with my family more, like together as a unit and not separately just because of school and work. That's one of my goals. I also started an LLC a couple of years ago. I'm an essential healthcare worker, so I haven't been able to focus on my business as much because I've been working the entire pandemic. And, here in New York, it got very, very overwhelming very, very quickly. And so I haven't been able to focus on my business. So I would like to be able to focus on my business and possibly go and get my terminal degree. We will see. I'm not sure yet, but in the works.
Ooh, that sounds awesome. So what is your business? You talked about it, so let us know.
So my business is going to be a catering business. It is a catering business, I should say. It's called A Touch of Lily LLC. And I named it after my grandmother. I'm from the South, and so cooking and baking are very important to me. My mom was a baker for most of my childhood, and my grandma was an amazing cook. And so I just wanted to incorporate the love of people, the love of cooking and baking that they both had. And my mom is still alive. Unfortunately, my grandmother is not. So I just wanted to continue her legacy through my love of cooking and sharing community and communal dining and building stronger relationships in our community, because we really are better together. And so that is what I hope to do with my company, but also help to fund nonprofits and other community service organizations.
That is awesome. So I'm going to be coming to get some food soon. I know it's going to come off the ground, so I'm coming to get some food. I know you're going to maybe cook some soul food or something. Yes, that is right up my alley. So I'm coming to get some. Be prepared.
You got a D-Stacks beat? D-Stacks beat? D-Stacks beat? D-Stacks beat?
Okay, so I like to end with a quote of the episode. So what is one of your favorite quotes, or what is one thing you want people to take away from this episode? What is one thing you want to dispel about people who are ably different? Any misconceptions? Let us know.
That's a loaded question.
It's okay.
One of the biggest quotes that's kind of served as my mantra it's an African proverb, and it says, I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am complete. And it's understanding that we are all interconnected, that we all need each other. If you're drinking coffee, it's because a Colombian farmer or a farmer sowed the seed, nurtured that seed, grew that seed, harvested that seed with other people. It was shipped by people. It came to you. Whoever made your coffee maker made the coffee maker. We're alive and we're thriving today because of the efforts of somebody else. So we are all interconnected in life, and we all need to realize that. And again, if you see somebody that's different than you, see what you can do to put a smile on their face. Say hello. Sometimes it's the simple gestures that we do that mean the biggest difference. And if you see somebody being ostracized, take the opportunity to either remove them from the situation, from that person, or to ask the aggressor why they're even feeling the need to single somebody out based on their differences. but know that you can be one of the biggest contributors to saving somebody's life and making somebody feel as a valued member of community. So, your actions do matter. Your inactions do matter. So make sure to make your actions count.
That is very insightful. And, I think sometimes we do lose sight of that we have to stand on other people's shoulders to get where we are, right? We all need each other at some point. We all need somebody's support. So I think that is really what's missing in today's world, that we rely on each other to get where we need to go. It's not just us alone. And I think we have gotten into this mode in society where it's survival of the fittest, which is horrible. And we need to bring back more love, more care, more compassion for each other, and just start spreading that in the world. And I hope this episode does that for you guys. So that is all we have for you today, folks. Thank you, Miss Shontae, for coming on. You were awesome. Give yourself a round of applause. Give her a round of applause, guys. She was the best. You guys are the best. Thank you for sharing, liking, and subscribing. Keep sharing and liking and subscribing. To subscribe, you hit that plus button in the top left-hand corner. And if you would like to donate to Queens on the Road podcast, you just have to create a Patreon account. Click the tier that works for you. I have 4 up there, guys. And I promise I will have great content for you. So thank you for your continued support. I love you guys. And if you have any questions for me or any of my guests, you can submit them to queensontheroad.podcast@gmail.com. Again, that is queensontheroad.podcast@gmail.com. And we are rolling out. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you next week.